and welcome back to the All Out Brits Podcast, the podcast that brings the house on all things NFL from across the seas here in sunny old England. And this week, in week 5, we saw Deshaun Watson settle more lawsuits than he's actually thrown touchdowns this season. And we also saw more records broken in the NFL than we finally saw images of Taylor Swift on TV. So you know what? Everything's coming back into normality. And we are back to normality as well, with some of our teams losing and some of them winning. But as always, to talk about all the good, the bad, and the very, very ugly is the main man himself, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. How are you doing, my friend? How did you enjoy this week? And how are we feeling?
Mate, I've enjoyed this week so much. It's been the best week of NFL in a long time. So many unbelievable games, so many touchdowns. Yeah. And yeah, mate, so much fun. I am quite tired, though. I am quite tired. It's the longest in terms of like actual football, time of football. Longest game week in NFL history. In America, the London game started at 9:30 and the Dallas Cowboys game finished Monday morning at 1 o'clock in the morning. Dak Prescott is the first quarterback to throw a pick in the same game in 2 different days. Well, that's a stat for you there, bro.
That's impressive, isn't it?
Well, only Dak Prescott could have that stat. Let's put it that way. But yeah, mate. Yeah, it's been a great week. Let's get to talking.
Let's, of course, get to talking. You mentioned the London game. It's the game that kicked us off for the Sunday weekend of football. And let's talk straight into it because a lot went on. First of all, we saw the Minnesota Vikings eventually end up as 5-0 champions. And we also saw probably the game that signaled that Aaron Rodgers' time as an NFL quarterback may slowly coming to an end, I think. Overall, for that game, what did you make of it? I mean, the Vikings were so impressive, but also I think they almost let the Jets back into that game. And I think the Jets probably one half decent drive and receivers actually catching something other than the cold away from probably winning that game.
Yeah, mate, you're right. I always think with London is they always get shafted with the games.
Yeah, 100%.
They usually get some bad games. And it wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't the best game ever. Yeah. There were some pretty interesting things that happened. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers throwing 3 interceptions. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, it was just all about the defenses that game. Yeah. That Minnesota Vikings defense is really, really impressive. It's really confusing. And it showed it confused a veteran quarterback, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Aaron Rodgers. He didn't know what to do. And he ended up throwing the ball to Stephon Gilmore with the game on the line, which ultimately sealed the day for the Vikings. I do think the Vikings, though, they missed Aaron Jones quite a lot. Obviously, he left injured. And that game really showed that Sam Darnold is a mid-tier quarterback. Yeah. I know we've been riding the MVP hype, Aaron, but I think he's shown kind of the form that we all expected him to show. Maybe it's a blip, maybe it's 1 week, but when you're a quarterback that does rely on that running attack and that ground game, when you have to try and throw the ball, I think he showed that week that maybe he can't throw it as well as we all thought he would.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, we did think he was superhero, but he has come back down to earth. And I think Aaron Rodgers is probably the same as well. First game he's ever thrown 3 interceptions in his long NFL career, and he did not look pretty whatsoever. Some of the windows he was forcing the ball into. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think he was helped out whatsoever. I mean, Breece Hall hardly touched the ball, really didn't deliver. I think Allen on the other side of it pretty much did most of the carries for the team. But Alan Lazard, Lord above, that man, I don't know what's going on with Dan, must have been broken because he could not catch anything. And when your receivers can't catch anything and you're getting smacked about by that Vikings front, it didn't look well. And I think we saw that ankle is not fully healed because there was a few handoffs where the poor man was struggling. He really did look like a pensioner. And I don't think it was the best game for Aaron Rodgers, to say the very least, was it?
No, it wasn't. And ultimately, mate, what happened? You will wake up, was it yesterday, I believe?
It was, yeah.
The Jets part ways with their head coach. How do you pronounce his surname, bro? I always forget it. Robert Salah. Salah. I'm from Yorkshire, mate. I've got no chance of pronouncing that. What do you think about that firing? And do you think it's as a result of the owner of that organisation in Aaron Rodgers making that decision? Or has it come from someone else?
It's very interesting because Aaron Rodgers came out today, like a certain TikTok that somebody may have mentioned, and said, I don't know anything about this. I was just as shocked as everybody else. I had nothing to do with it. And people saying that I did should
maybe you
shop
saw
it,
the
basically.
TikTok, mate.
Maybe he did.
One of
But
the
Aaron
13
Rodgers,
people that did.
definitely, yeah, it's not looking good, bro. Aaron Rodgers defo had a hand in that being the end of the days for Robert Saleh. I know there was a lot of talk about the fact that he was not happy about it, and everyone was pretty shocked, as I think you would be. But that Jets organization has been really bad for a very long time. They've had a really tough few years. I thought after they got rid of Zach Wilson, we'd be able to move past this. We clearly haven't. Apparently, he'd got rid of his play caller and said, "We don't want you. You're being demoted." And that's what kicked it off and eventually said, "See you later, pal. Pack your bags." And so it's not looking good in the Jets organization, is it?
It's not, mate. One thing I would say is obviously, like you mentioned, Robert was thinking about getting rid of his offensive coordinator. That offense is stagnant. It's boring. There's nothing interesting that happens there. It's one of the worst offenses in the league.
Yeah.
When you're comparing that to the Vikings offense, where they had jets, motions, they had different run designs. They got the I formation out at some point. It showed for me. One thing I would say about Robert Saleh, he's going to make a fantastic defensive coordinator because that Jets defense is really good. Obviously, he's acquired Sauce Gardner, the third SG3, as I like to call him, but the Williams brothers on that defensive line as well, brilliant. But that defense as a whole, it's really exciting. It's interesting. They make disguises work. That's what the Jets are good at. It's a defensive team. I hope he comes to the Cowboys soon.
I don't think that Nano will be going straight to the Cowboys, but I don't think he needs to work again. The amount of money he's probably still getting paid by the Jets, I think it's pretty healthy to say the very least. But overall, not a good day out for the Jets. I think they really, really need to get a win as soon as possible and hope that saves their season a little bit, but it's not looking good. But the Vikings continue to be undefeated and they look pretty much unstoppable at this point, which is not ideal, is it?
It's not, mate. It's not. 5-0. But let's jet back over to America. Let's leave the Jets in London and let's talk about the games that kicked off at 12 o'clock American time, 6 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
And the one that stands out for me, Bengals-Ravens, mate. That was the game of the week. I know, obviously, we're not going to talk about the magic that Kirk Cousins threw on Thursday night, but this game had two quarterbacks that were equally as impressive, equally as magic, equally as special. Lamar Jackson at his best, Joe Burrow at his best. This is what we want. That AFC North is so packed full of talent, isn't it, mate? What did you make of those two quarterbacks and what did you make of the game?
I mean, again, I feel really bad for Kirk Cousins because it feels like he's been overshadowed. His amazing game's been overshadowed by the fact that Joe Burrow, I think probably the poster boy for the NFL at times, has come back and had an absolute game. And I tell you what, I was not shocked whatsoever. That Bengals team, I know they have an awful record, and I know they haven't really been the team that we know them to be, but they are 0-4 in one-score games this year. That means they have pushed it to the very, very edge and just struggled to get over the line. So they're not a team that have been completely out of it, miles out of it, and that was the case on the weekend. Joe Burrow, 5 touchdowns, absolutely unbelievable. Jamar Chase and the Burrow connection seemed to be back. It was absolutely unbelievable. What an unbelievable performance from them. But the Ravens... Now, I must say, I said it a million times before, Lamar, when he's outside that pocket and when that pressure comes, he can struggle quite a bit. And I think in this game, it showed again, he did struggle in parts. Amount of times he had to throw the ball away and kill drives, but he had a big, big man stood behind him that if you give him the ball, that brother can run, and that brother did run. He ran him so far down the field that when it came to overtime, he pretty much guaranteed them the win. Unbelievable is Derrick Henry. Broke more records. Lamar broke more records. And I tell you what, like you said, the AFC is absolutely on fire this year.
Mate, unbelievable game. Unbelievable game. And if you'd have told me at the start of the season, the Cincinnati Bengals, who I backed to win the Super Bowl, were going to start 1-4, I would have not believed you in the slightest. Joe Burrow this season, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, nearly 1,400 yards, and a QBR, Taron, of 113.6. He has been impressive. Okay, let's not let that understate. But that Cincinnati Bengals defense is poor. In fact, it's the 7th worst in the league. The only team that has conceded more touchdowns than the Cincinnati Bengals, Taron, the Carolina Panthers, led by some very, very dodgy quarterbacks themselves. So they're not a good unit. They are not a good team.
Yeah.
But Joe Burrow is just so good. Jamar Chase is just so good. T. Higgins as well. He got 9 catches. Let's not forget about him. He got involved as well. But Lamar Jackson, what did he have? He had 9 receivers to throw the ball to. He got the ball out, but he also had 55 yards on the ground, totaling for over 400 yards for him this game. He was back to MVP looking form. And that's what we want. We want these big games. And the good thing about, obviously, this AFC North matchup is that we're going to see it again in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, the Bengals have got some work to do. They've got the Giants, the Browns, the Eagles, and the Raiders. All 4 of those are winnable games. They're playing 3 dodgy quarterbacks and Jalen Hurts, who's not looked himself this season. If they can go into that next Ravens game at 5-4, they stand a really, really good chance of making the playoffs. But can you see them winning the next 4 games, Taryn, or do you see them slipping up at least one of those games?
It's a very interesting one. Again, like you mentioned, the defense is really, really struggling. But that offense, again, has been so close to winning them games. I mean, they were pretty much a half decent hold away from winning that game, and they probably would have deserved it. And again, getting into those situations, you do need to get over the line. I feel for Burrow. I really, really do. I think in interviews, he looks like a drained man. But overall, I think the Browns are struggling. I think the Giants, although they had a very good game against the Seahawks, I think they, again, are struggling. And I think overall, that Bengals team should be blowing teams away now. That they've got the cohesion back. I know Burrow threw that INT at the end, which sort of, changed things over a little bit. But overall, this team looks like a unit, and they're slowly getting to it. Why not go on an absolute run? And why not eventually make it to the playoffs? I think one more loss probably cements their fate, but one more win and we keep that train rolling, I think.
Mate, we love keeping that train rolling. Get the Bengals rolling. Another team, bro, that have been rolling their way through the season rolling and it to an impressive 4-1 is everyone's favourite second team in the league. I hope you've got the sound ready.
Just wait. It's coming. I wasn't prepared for this. I was not prepared.
I'll take you up, bro. It's the Houston Texans.
That's why he's the GOAT.
We got the sound out again. We're using the Switch mod. Obviously, mate, the Texans come away with the win. In a battle of quarterbacks that we thought was going to be a little bit more impressive than what it actually turned out to be. Josh Allen, we mentioned some records have been broken. Another one was broken in this game. It was the lowest completion percentage of 30 passes in 30 seasons for Josh Allen. He looked absolutely shocking, only completing 9 of his passes. On the flip side, CJ Stroud looked calm. He looked posed. Yeah. He looked like the veteran. Josh Allen looked like the rook. What did you make of that game? And what do you make of those QBs?
I mean, I think Josh Allen probably should have gone home and put his feet up, probably well past that third quarter. And after that tackle, there's no way he should have been allowed back on that pitch is the first thing. I was so shocked that he made it back out. And I think, again, that probably contributed a little bit to the decision very late on in the game. I think they probably threw that game away.
Stupid. So
Absolutely
stupid.
Absolutely ridiculous. I think, again, that, third quarter comeback that they had, ridiculous. I thought they were dead and buried, and they came back. And again, when you're throwing, 30 passes and completing 9 of them, it's not great. So for him to get to that point was pretty unbelievable.
A miracle, an absolute miracle,
isn't it? Miracle. But when you get to that point, like we talked about the Bengals, you have to make it count. And Josh Allen did not make it count. I could not believe they made that decision to just continue passing plays and not make it any further outside of their end zone. And it pretty much cemented their faith very, very late on in the game. But on the flip side of that Texans team, D'Amico Ryans, my Lord above, they are absolutely unbelievable. Nico Collins, I am so upset he's been injured because that connection has been absolutely fire. And another man who was probably very happy to come away with the win, even though he didn't get a touchdown, was a little naughty boy in the name of Stephon Diggs, which I'll let you talk about, Mr. Greenwood.
Yeah, mate. I might save it for a little bit later on, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Houston Texans going forward. Stephon Diggs is going to have to. He's going to have to keep his eyes on the game. Let's say the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Collins is going to miss at least. Was it 4 weeks? I think he's going to miss.
Yeah.
Your fantasy, is he on your team? Fantasy team?
No, he's not. Thankfully, praise the Lord.
Our league isn't going to miss him that much then. Me and you aren't anyway. But yeah, that decision by Sean McDermott, stupid. Your quarterback's been ass all game. Why are you throwing it 3 times? You're inside your own 10-yard line. What are you doing? And then CJ Stroud obviously has the poise to just get his team back into a position where they can kick the field goal. But daft, mate, really, really daft. But let's look forward to next week because we like looking forward. We like moving the chains. Let's move it forward. What game do you want to start with, Taryn? Should we go with your team or with my team? Who do you want to go with?
I feel like we're going to have to talk about the Niners at some point or
Let's
another.
let's talk about the Niners now, then, bro. Come on. Obviously, Niners versus the Seahawks. Both teams coming off a loss. Thursday night football from the Pacific Northwest. What do the Niners have to do? What do the Seahawks have to do? Who comes away with the dub?
Well, the Niners just have to not be shit past half time, to be honest
That's
with you.
really difficult, though. That is really
It's
for them this
honestly
season.
ridiculous. I mean, everyone keeps saying this is a must-win game. The players are saying, it's not, but it is. It is. You cannot go 0-3 in division. In 2 games that you should have won. The Niners should be so far clear this season,
But
and
you're
they have
not.
shot themselves in the foot
But you're
ridiculously.
not.
And the worst bit is it's their own demise. I mean, in that game that we lost last week against the Cardinals, we'll just talk about that briefly. Brock Purdy, I thought, had an unbelievable game in the first half. I think overall he had a pretty good game. But the play calling, again, was absolutely awful. You had all your assets back. Ayuk had an unbelievable game. He looked back to his best. Debo hardly did anything, was not involved whatsoever. Get that man the ball. And for me, I think the play that absolutely killed us was you lost your kicker. And Brock Purdy, as good as he is outside the pocket and the plays that he creates, decided to take a 20-yard sack, which meant that knowing we had to go on 4th down, absolutely killed us and pretty much gave the Cardinals a way back into this game. I was not happy whatsoever. I'm still not happy. But going forward to this Hawks game, we've got to kill him. We've got to kill him. I want us hunting. I really do want us hunting. And if we aren't hunting, just go home and call it a day. We need to be killing that ground game because, again, this week it was a pass-first offense. It worked in parts, but Jordan Mason was not as effective as he could have been. He really, really struggled, stuffed at the line. We're not having that whatsoever. I think Brock is going to have a big, big day with his legs. Daniel Jones had a massive day with his legs against Seahawks last week, and I think Brock is going to have a very big day. Big day with his legs this week as well. I'm just thinking about how much I love him. He needs to turn up, though. Kyle Shanahan needs to turn up, and not that fraud that keeps sitting there and calling some dodgy plays. I honestly cannot deal with the Niners losing this game. I'm staying up for this one as well. If you don't hear from me on Friday morning, just assume the worst. Call whoever you want, because this game could be the end of me.
Mate, do you know what? I actually think it will be. I genuinely don't see the 49ers winning this football game. I know. Obviously, I know you've got Fred Warner. I know that defense is good. But on the other side, on the flip side, it's not good, is it? I'm trying to pick it up to be something that it's not. But this season, it ain't the one. I think there's going to be some really interesting matchups.
Yeah.
For the Seahawks' point of view, obviously, DK Metcalf has been absolutely explosive this season. Three games over 100 yards. He's going to be doubled up. Okay, we know that. He's going to be kind of eliminated out of the game a little bit at some point. However, the Seahawks also have a man called JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and he is one of the best slot receivers in the league this season. Mm-hmm. The Niners have been the exact worst team in the slot this season. It's the best against the worst. It's JSN versus whoever they try and stick on him, and I can back JSN to get some yards and rack up some yards. 18.5 yards to receivers in the slot per attempt the Niners have allowed this season, bro. On the offensive side of the ball, Brandon Ayuk needs to step up again. Brock Purdy cannot hold onto the ball. He held onto the ball for nearly 4 seconds of play last week. That's too long. That's ridiculous. When your players aren't getting open downfield, just run for a yard, throw the ball away, do something. You can't hold on to the ball for that long. It's two good defenses though playing each other. The 10th best defense and the 11th best defense. But for me, I think that Seattle O-line has been absolutely dominant this season. That ground game, Walker on the ground has been absolutely fantastic. So for me, Seattle come away with a W.
No chance, mate. The Niners, I got to say it, the Niners are going to win. But no, I think Kenneth Walker, as you mentioned there, I think he's a big, big part going into this game. He has been unbelievable as a receiving back. And I think that is a big part of what this Niners offense is missing without Christian McCaffrey. As good Jordan Mason is on the ground, he cannot catch a ball to save his life. And that's why he ain't been getting it in his hands. And so that, again, opens up so little to the Niners offense, to Kyle Shanahan. Whereas with the Seahawks, they've been unbelievable having that extra receiver. And like you said, you've got DK Metcalf going long. He has had a few fumbles this year, and hopefully Fred Warner can punch one out of his hands. But overall, they've been absolutely unbelievable. Get stomped on a little bit by the Giants, and hopefully we can stomp on them this week. And so go Niners, bang, bang Niners. And if not, it's me, bang, bang Taron. And so let's move on pretty swiftly and talk about yourself. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Now, you're a very, very lucky boy. And so is Dak Prescott, because he is absolutely arse. And he's been recovered by the fact that somehow he put a drive together very late on in the game. That somehow saved them the game. But this week, the Lions are not going to let the Cowboys do that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about last week as well. Cowboys, where are we heading this week?
Mate, it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a tough one. Obviously, they've got a lot of hype this week of the Cowboys. That game for me was the duality of Dak. It was absolutely the most Dak Prescott performance you will ever see. He could play for shit for 3 quarters, but it don't matter because when the game's on the line, he stands up and he delivers. And that's what you want from your quarterback. That's why you pay him $60 million a year. Mm-hmm. You don't want it to get to that point, though, I must say. The Steelers are a very, very good defensive unit, though. That's one thing. Yeah. I think when that ball got punched out from Rico Dowdle on the 1 yard line with seconds to go, oh, bro, I was watching them highlights back and my heart was absolutely in my mouth. I thought there's no way that we could turn around from this position. But Jalen Talbot gets open on 4th and goal. Dak Prescott, what a man. The crossing route, what a play design from Mike McCarthy. Yeah, brilliant. And the hype coming off that is going to hopefully lead us into this week with positive momentum, positive energy, positive vibes, and hopefully a positive result. Will it in practice, Taron? No, of course it won't. It's the Lions coming off a bye week. Dan Campbell coming off a bye week. The former Cowboys. Well, I didn't know this, Taron, until I did my research. Okay. He played as a tight end for the Cowboys. 03, 05. So there you go, mate. We're turning home into AT&T if you like. This was the first week, though, against the Steelers where I thought that Dallas defense did okay. And yeah, it wasn't against a fantastic quarterback, but the last couple of weeks, Giants and obviously now the Steelers, Mike Zimmer's offense has improved. It's not been fantastic, but it has certainly improved. But this week, obviously, we're missing Micah Parsons. We're missing DeMarcus Lawrence. They're both injured. They're both on either side of that defensive line. So Mike Zimmer has to be exciting with his defense. He has to be intuitive with his defense. Last week, he was really, really good on 3rd down. He was doubling down on the A-gaps quite a lot. So he was clogging the guards and the centres on 3rd down quite a lot with his linebackers, which confused a lot of quarterbacks, which was what we wanted to see. It's a bit of interesting stuff. It's a bit of the nitty-gritty defensive stuff that no one finds interesting, that no one likes to talk about. But that's what you have to do, and that's what he did. Hopefully you can see that against the Lions coming up. But the Lions, they're just too good. That offensive line for the Lions is just too good. Amon-Ra St. Brown is just too good. Jared Goff, I think, will be just too good. And Dak Prescott will go toe-to-toe for a little bit, but at some point, he's going to throw a pick, he's going to change the game, and Goff's going to go away with 7 points. I don't know what you think, mate, but unfortunately for me, Detroit come away with a dub.
I can only agree with you, my friend. I think the big thing that we always talk about is Dallas cannot deal with the run. And that tandem duo that the Lions have, stomp, spit, spank, they're going to be all over the Cowboys this week. And I think, again, it's going to solidify the fact that this Lions team are here to carry on playing, even though they've been a bit dodgy in parts. And let's head to another team that's started a bit dodgy, but they're finding a bit of form, and that is the Caleb Williams-led Chicago Bears. Now, this week, they're coming over to London, so we're probably guaranteed to have a bit of a stinking game, but they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who finally got a win, which, again, was a bit of a stressful game. But finally, we're starting to see Trevor Lawrence look a bit more like the quarterback that he's meant to be. But he was almost outplayed by a very old Joe Flacco. What did you make of that Colts game, first of all, and then looking ahead to this Bears-Jags matchup in London?
I don't think we can look into that Colts game too much, okay? The Colts are the worst defense in football, okay? They have allowed the most yards per game. They've allowed over 400 yards per game, okay? Let's not look into it too much. Let's not think that Lawrence is the second coming of Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. He's not. He's a pretty boy with a...
He's not pretty, I'll tell you that much.
He's got a nose like a nose.
He's got a nose like a dog, mate.
He's got a nose of Julius Caesar, but his hair he's something to be desired, I must say. I think for me, we mentioned the London get the dog games. I think this is going to be an absolute dog game as well. But I do think Caleb Williams is going to show his talent a little bit more. Again, getting better and better each week. He looked really, really good against the Panthers this week. And I think he's just going to carry on that form. I think the Bears have found a little bit of a quarterback. Obviously, we all knew he was good, but I didn't think no one really thought that with the expectation he had coming out of college that he was going to start and just get better and better and better every week. Everyone thought he was going to hit the ground running, but obviously there is a transition there. He has now transitioned. He is now an NFL quarterback. For me, the Bears win in London over Jacksonville. What do you reckon, mate? And yeah, who gets the dub?
Again, like you said, I think he's learnt how to be an NFL quarterback. I think in college, you are the man, you are the star boy. You are basically having to play out your skin and prove yourself as a quarterback to essentially make it to the Big Apple. And he's come to the Big Apple. He's come to the Windy City. And I tell you what, he's now starting to find his feet. And I think a big part of that, as we mentioned before, is he's handing the ball off to DeAndre Swift, who, again, didn't really have much to do with the Eagles because of how good their offense was. But now he's getting the ball in his hand and he's getting into the end zone. And so is his star receiver as well. And that's what we want to see for the Bears. I think they're doing absolutely unbelievably well. And I think they can only get better from here, like we said. That Jags team, though, Brian Thomas looks like an absolute star. But that Jags team has had so many different additions to it. They should be doing a lot better than they actually are. 100% agree with you. They're going to get stomped on. They're going to get mauled by the Bears, and I'm here for it. I really, really am.
Found him a little gem. I've been struggling.
I think the last game that is probably worth talking about is the Ravens versus Commanders games. Now, two quarterbacks, again, who have set records with their legs the last weekend, and two quarterbacks who just looked to be orchestrating their offenses perfectly. Now, this Commanders team, no one had anything in belief that they were going to achieve anything this season, but they are looking, again, like a steam train, and they're powering through teams. And Jaden Daniels is looking like an absolute master in command of the Commanders. And so where do we think this game is going to go this week?
It's going to be the matchup of the week, mate. It's going to be the current most exciting, most riveting quarterback versus the future in the most exciting, riveting quarterback. I think Lamar Jackson is who Jaden Daniels will be in a few years' time. I really, as much as I don't like to say it, as a Cowboys fan with the Commanders being in the division, I do see him going that way. I do think the Washington organization deserves a quarterback. They've had the troubles, they've had their issues. But what a gem that man is. He is unbelievable. He's so exciting. He's so fun to watch. And he's just so good. I really hope that they get the job done against Baltimore. And I think that they will get the job done against Baltimore. I am all on this Washington Commanders hype train. I can see, mate, I can see this Baltimore Raven. Right, you tell me now, if Jaden Daniels goes and beats this Baltimore defense, beats Lamar Jackson, goes to 5-1, has there been a rookie that started better than this in the last few seasons? But I know Stroud had a good year last year, but he did not start like this. He did not start leading this division. Leading a division where there's two playoff teams in it, okay, in the Cowboys and the Eagles. No team has gone back-to-back in the NFC East for over 20 years. I can see Washington coming away with with at least the top 4 seed this season if he keeps playing the way he does. What do you reckon, mate? How has Jaden Daniels been playing?
I mean, he's been absolutely unbelievable. I mean, there was a rookie a few seasons back that came in mid-season and performed pretty well and led his team pretty far until he lost his elbow. But, other than that, Jaden Daniels was pretty good. I think the only thing that is going to let him down and let the team down is that defense. And I think when they come up against Lamar, we saw how many points they gave up against the Bengals. I think that Lamar and Derrick Henry and all the 18 other receivers that he keeps throwing to and getting involved, I think they're going to be a bit too much to handle for that Washington team. And I think overall it's going to be a high scoring game. I'd be very, very surprised if it isn't. But I think the Ravens' experience, I think the Ravens' momentum is going to carry them through. And I think Derrick Henry is going to carry 2 through to the end zone as well this weekend.
I can back the Derrick Henry chat, but for me, come on, bro. Let's be different. Be on the Daniels hype train.
Forget different, mate. I want to be right. I'm sick of these Yanks getting onto us for it. You know what I mean?
Mate, they do your head in because they're not right all the time. I don't know. They don't have a clue what they're on about all the time, but they just don't like listening to our accents. We'd have millions and millions of subscribers, bro, and followers if we just had a different accent. I promise you that, mate.
This is what I'm telling you. 1 month in America, we hit it up one time. We won't book a return visit back. I think we'll be indoctrinated into the tribe if I make it past the airport.
That's the issue with it. That's the main issue.
Just a tad. Maybe take a guard 1.5 to the beard and we'll see what happens from there. But let's move on. Let's head to the sideline. Let's have a breather. Let's have a sup as well. No sponsorship, but I'm having a drink, mate.
Gulp, mate. That's it. Tell us about the TikTok shot. Come on.
If you're a Liverpool fan, you'll know what this means. Let's head to the sideline and let's have a chat. Now, this week on TikTok, it's doing me nothing, but it's a very good conversation. And that is this whole hear me out malarkey. People keep making cakes and it's causing arguments in relationships. Now, we have a very, very close bond. And this could cause an argument in our relationship, but I'm hoping that we're very open and can communicate well enough with each other to let this slide. And so the hear me out trend is essentially who you think is, in the eyes of everyone else, seen pretty poorly and who you think in your eyes is seen pretty well. Now, we could do it on ability of players and pretend like we know a lot about, the sport, but we're not. We're going to do it off looks and opinions and everything as such. And so, hear me out, Elliot. Do you want to start or shall I start?
You go first, mate. You can start.
Okay, I want you to hear me out on this one. This is a pretty good one. I saw a picture the other day of a man who looked absolute horror. Absolute horror. He looks like he belongs in Monsters, Inc., and that is a man by the name of Mr. Blankenship. Do you remember Mr. Blankenship?
I do, yeah.
Goggles, yeah. Looks like he's Randall's associate for Monsters, Inc. That's the fella. But you know what? I was digging into him. He's actually a really, really nice guy. He does look like Mike McDaniels probably looked when he had his alcohol problem. But I think overall, he's a sound fella. I'd go to Pizza Express with him. I'd have a nice little walk with him. I like that guy, Mr. Blankenship. Yeah, that's my hear me out. I like that.
Nice guys always finish last.
Well, hopefully he'll let me finish first, but it's okay.
Oh, that is
Mr. Greenwood.
Right. Okay. So we mentioned my hear me out a little bit different. I didn't think about this player before this week, but there's been stuff that's been coming out in the news that I think is worth talking about. Stephon Diggs. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. Wide receiver 1 he's been sending the passes off the field. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, it's come out about him, Cardi B, Offset's not too happy about it. She was 8 months pregnant, bro, at the time. He's got the right name because that boy been digging. You know what I'm saying? That boy been digging. That boy, he's a filthy bugger. He's a filthy bugger. But what can be said? Stephon Diggs, hear me out. Someone else hear me out. So there you go, Stephon Diggs.
I know. I think there's a video going around as well about the Vikings team, and they all were asked, who would you least like your daughter to come home and date? Late. That was a bit northeast. We'll stick with that. But yeah, who would you least like to bring home? And Stephon Diggs was a clear mile-high candidate. And his response, he said that people don't know him well enough. And you know what? We probably agree with that. So Stephon, if you ever fancy a pint, if you're ever in London, come over. We'll sort you out, fella.
He gives me Antonio Brown vibes, though, bro. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, he's an absolute lunatic. He's an absolute
you see as well, at the end of the Buffalo game, him and Josh Allen had the most awkward interaction that you'll ever see.
It was very forced. Very forced.
The two people that are supposed to be pals. That's like me and you meeting up and just going...
It really is. Yeah, to be fair, that's pretty much what it's like. Yeah. But yeah, all I know is you need to keep your wife indoors the day that Stephon Diggs comes to England, say the very least. And that goes for all our viewers, and that goes for everyone in general.
And that goes for people when you're out in the town as well, bro. I saw your moves at the weekend. They were fire, bro. What have you been getting up to?
No, I don't know what you're on about, mate. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to stay behaving. Yeah, we'll wait for that scandal to come out a few weeks later on, say the very least. And moving on very swiftly to the very end of our podcast this week. Elliot, it's been an absolute pleasure. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you get on the TikTok because the views aren't looking too healthy.
They're low this week.
They're low. TikTok, sort it out, mate. That's the only reason we do this. But we shall see you next week. If you're on a bye, don't miss out on this. Miss out on the football, but don't miss out on us. But we shall see you next week when plenty more footballs have been played and plenty more downs have been downed. Lots of love. Elliot Greenwood, any last words?
If you're on a buy, goodbye. If you're not, keep coming back for more. We love it on All Out Brits. Come on.
I like that. All right. And we shall see you next time on the All Out Brits podcast.
See ya.